Hey guys, welcome back to Andrew's Field Gear, and today we're going to be talking about my We Tech XM177. This is actually an XM177E1, so We Tech's branding is a little bit off there, but they did make an excellent product. So let's get right into it. We're going to start from the tip and go to the butt, just like a ram thumb. Anyway, up here we have the super ugly orange flash suppressor. It's an A2 birdcage, so this thing is going to go pretty soon, I think at least. Primarily because I've got a moderator on the way. Unfortunately, my dad bought this for me from Evike. Thank you, Father. And Evike is a scummy company that sells you everything separately. So they sell you the moderator separately. I'm not paying $30 for the moderator, so I'm going to buy it straight from Airsoft when I buy like 5 more of these guys. So I did get a job. I think I might have told you guys that in the last video. The video's going to be more frequent, so stay tuned for that stuff. Anyway, next up, this is pretty much factory. I've not really done much of anything to modify it yet. We'll see what I have modified later in the video. Next up is the front sight block, which includes a bayonet lug, which it should not. These were filed off for the carbine variants, or the early ones at least, the XM177s. So I believe this is a Colt 609, although it could be wrong on that. That is a bit fuzzy in my head. And those were shaved off on the 607 through 6 whatever. I think the 6... I want to say 610, but I know that's wrong. So, anyway, right here is the casting mark. These are FARB. Any M16 in Vietnam had the casting marks machined off. Colt did that for aesthetic purposes, and they stopped doing it in 1972. Next up is this guy right here, Paracord Sling. Obviously, the paracord itself needs to change, but this is more of just a proof of concept for me. Make sure that it would work. It is what I like to call a safety sling, I guess, and we'll demonstrate why later. But basically, you can really quickly take it off. So it's meant to be safe, if I get into a river or whatever. Obviously, I won't with this, but in the real world, if this were an XM177 and I were a Special Forces guy, that might be a problem. So I can quickly pull on this little rope right here, and the entire rifle just falls off of me. Next up, skinny handguards. These guys have 6 holes in them. Good on We Tech for getting this right. They could have just easily put on the M4 handguards that they already were making and called it a day, but thankfully they did not. One less part I have to replace. Next up is the magazines. These are nice. They're aluminum. The one complaint I have is the plastic feed lips. So they're $30 a pop, so it's not too terrible for a gas blowback gun, but I've got 2 of them right now. More on the way. Next up is the receiver. This is appropriate for an XM177E1, the later type, or an XM177E2. All E2s had full fence receivers. Some E1s did. Again, that is off the top of my head. I may be wrong there. If I am, I'll write it in the description. So, this guy right here, that is correct. You should have the circular little magazine release with a rivet, not a screw. So look out for that. Next up, the dust cover. This is FARB. So, oh, yikes. Wow, okay. There we go. That's better. So, as you can see, it's got this little trapezoid shape, or triangle shape, I guess you would call it. Let me grab the one that's correct. Over here, we've got the correct one. And you can see square. Additionally, this is like an octagonal kind of deal. And the factory one isn't. So, real quick, isn't. So it's a semicircle. That's wrong. This is appropriate for an A2 only. The straight pull delta ring is acceptable for all Vietnam War guns, except for the XM177E2, if I remember correctly. The E2 was late enough that they had the delta ring, the tapered ring. So, keep that in mind. Next up is this guy right here. It has the raised sight markings, which is correct for a later pattern of Colt upper receiver. So that's good. Teardrop forward assist. And the forward assist does work. So, real quick, let me just demonstrate here. The bolt does not seat all the way forward like this. We can press our forward assist and get that guy into battery. So it does work. And it is pretty much worthless, just like the real thing. But it does work, a little bit of authenticity. Next up, the pistol grip. This is original. The factory ones seem to have a little bit of a slimmer profile, so they're less comfortable in the hand. Unfortunately, I don't have the money for original XM177 handguards. I can't even find those online. And I don't have the money for original aluminum stocks. So I've just got the factory polymer one right here. I haven't bothered to fill in the other 4 holes. So We Tech kind of did a mess up there. Shouldn't really have that hole at all for any gun. But the XM177, all of them were 2-position stocks. All the way out, all the way in. There was no in between. It was not adjustable. It was just a retractable stock. So, yeah. Anyway, receiver reinforcements right there. Those are good. This little groove right there is good for any 603. So Colt 603 and up had a groove on the fire selector. Earlier ones had a dimple, and ones before that, or ones between the dimple and the groove, were smooth. So that's pretty cool. Again, reinforcements are correct, or lack thereof, rather. And now to the other side. This is where kind of the cool stuff is, in my opinion. No trades, so I'm going to apply those myself. We'll see how I do that. That'll be a problem for later me. Oh, gosh. My camera quality is just not doing well today. Anyway, safe, semi, auto, just like the real thing. The bolt catch, which does work. So, real quick, I've got one hand on the camera, so this may not work too well. Okay, good. Yep. So, bolt is back all the way. We take a look over here. The bolt is back. There you go. So, it works. Both the front and rear sight are adjustable, like the real thing, again. The magazine release obviously works, but that's no surprise. Pretty much everything on here is mil-spec. Oh, castle nut as well. The originals only had 2 grooves, like this, 2 little nuts for the wrench. So I'm not sure why they moved to 4, but they did. And that is Farb, so I need to replace that as well. Anyway, the magazines go nice and easy into here, and they seem to have a slightly different profile. They're a little bit thinner than actual Colt M16 magazines, AR-15 magazines. Doesn't work on my mount. I don't actually own any M16 mags myself, but it doesn't work on my mount. So anyway, these do have a bolt hold open that works some of the time. It's a bit temperamental. So there we go. It works every time when you're firing it, but sometimes when you pull the charging handle back, it just doesn't. So yeah. Anyway, for quick reloads, I do a Marine thing, so I use M61 gear. That stuff's kind of awful to put magazines back into. It's quick to get them out of, slow to get them back into. I use this as a dump pouch. One of my friends on Discord actually has tried this more times than I have, and he has gotten really fast with it. So you just wear it over your left shoulder, or over your right shoulder across the chest, bandolier style, obviously, and put the magazines in there when you run out. So it is a regular 7.62 second pattern bandolier. So this guy is a cool thing to have, good thing to have if you can actually use this. Anyway, let's get on to the 20-inch barrel. So here's the We Tech XM177 front sight base and barrel, and we'll go over the modifications I've done. So first up, you'll notice there's no bayonet lug on the front sight base anymore, and that's for a reason. The carbines, because of their enormous moderators, about 4.5 inches out in the front, you couldn't mount a bayonet if you tried. So they just ground them off, Colt did. Now, unfortunately, the We Tech is compatible with military parts in most cases. It is not quite perfect on the front sight base. So if you take a look here, I had to sand off some of the material underneath the FSB. And that is so I can fit my XM3 bipod to it. So as we can see here, this is an aluminum bipod, spring-loaded, designed for the M16A1, and it works on the XM177 as well. So as you can see, it does fit properly. It's not quite perfect, but it is a lot. It would not clip on at all with the original front sight block before any modification. Next up, I think, is going to be the dust cover and the 20-inch barrel upper receiver, and my plans for that. So here's the other upper receiver. This one configured to be an M16A1, or rather, hopefully an XM16E1 in the future. And it's got a 20-inch barrel in line with that. So being a We Tech XM177 that I have, I don't have a 20-inch barrel. Now, I did have the JG 20-inch barrel, which I did make a video on, but I wasn't really happy with the video. I think it was kind of bad, so we took that down. And I just scrapped the entire JG gun and reused the parts that were reusable. Most of them were not, spoiler alert. It's kind of an awful gun, don't buy it. So what I did here, I used some chalk blue, I think it was, that I got at Home Depot. And I tried to make it work. It didn't really. It was a little bit too blue. I think it's about this correct lightness. You know, it's about gray enough. It's just got a little bit too much blue in there. So obviously the upper receiver is going to get painted. And apparently this film lubricant stuff is what's best. And I've heard that it looks spot on for the original Colt Gray. I cannot attest to that myself. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, as is appropriate for an XM16E1, I've ground down this guy right here. Unfortunately, I was using an angle grinder for that. Not an angle grinder. A wire wheel, and I hit the front sight as well. Again, it's JG. Doesn't really matter. Not a big deal. I have an extra front sight block anyway, so front sight base, I mean. These are the JG handguards. My originals do not fit on the 20-inch JG barrel. So when I buy some more magazines, which will have to come from Kai Airsoft in Hong Kong, I believe it is, I'm going to need to buy a 20-inch barrel and the sound moderator. Anyway, dust cover right here. This is the correct early style of dust cover with the octagonal little guy right there, the detent, and the square detent cover, I guess you would call it. There you go. So this is an original piece. Pretty cool. It does not close with the bolt in it, so I'm going to try and remedy that, but I haven't really figured out the problem just yet, so we'll go over that later if I do manage to figure that out. The delta ring, or rather the slip ring as it would be called early in the nomenclature, is correct. It's a straight wall one, so that's good. And then up here we've got a 3-prong flash hider, as is appropriate for an XM16E1, which is what I plan to convert this into by sanding away the full fencing on the lower into a partial fence lower. So the sling swivel, you know, that works fine. The bayonet lug actually does work perfectly with a bayonet. However, I don't have one to demonstrate that with anymore. I plan to buy one pretty soon, you know, buy one from like Numerous Gun Parts. They've got good bayonets, like excellent condition bayonets and scabbards for like $90, so I think I'm going to buy one of those. And the one thing that the JG gun has over the We Tech one, let me grab the bipod here real quick. Bipod fits perfectly. No sanding required. So, yeah. And sorry for the mess in the background. That's just an extension cord that goes into the treadmill. Got to make those gains, you know. Now, part of the process for converting the JG barrel to be able to attach to the We Tech barrel, I had to grind off the lug that the JG barrel used to attach to the JG receiver, and replace it with a lug that that would connect with the We Tech receiver, because they are different. You know, gas blowback versus AEG, slightly different. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that meant I had to rotate the barrel 90 degrees, which in turn would mean that I would have to recut these grooves right here. I had to recut them. So I used the front sight block as a jig, and it wiggled a little tiny bit too much on the barrel while I was drilling it, and I didn't notice while I was doing it, and it wobbles a little bit. So that's yet another reason to buy the We Tech barrel when I buy the other magazines I need. So hopefully that'll be pretty soon. We'll repaint everything, get it all looking all spiffy. Oh, and by the way, these are 3-prong flash hiders. They're 3D printed. So is the birdcage flash hider I own. The only thing that I'm going to bother with the metal for a muzzle device is going to be the moderator. I want to get the actual correct type of moderator. So anyway, that's it for the 20-inch barrel receiver, or upper receiver. And I guess now on to the extra stock I have. So I'll see you guys then. Last but certainly not least, I have the stock for the full-length 20-inch rifle. So this is a D stock, a solid body stock as it's sometimes known. You know, it's got the little swing swivel that actually does swivel. So if you see that, it does swivel. Not sure why they call the later ones sling swivels, excuse me, when they don't actually swivel, but they do. For a sling on my full-length rifle, I use a GP strap. So these were, you know, guys would use pretty much anything and everything for a sling. So you do need a shorter length stock screw than the standard A2, which is what you will typically see in gun stores. So you can take an A2 and cut it down a little bit, or you can just buy a purpose-built one. I have a purpose-built A1 screw, but I can't seem to find it for the life of me. So, yeah. Anyway, I've also got a buffer tube, but I didn't really bring that up here to my bonus room because I'm lazy. So, you know, it is a regular buffer tube. There's nothing special about it. It just screws right onto the XM177 lower. The threads were taller. They were the correct pitch and the correct like length and all that, but they just were a little bit too tall. So I took a file to the threads, sanded them down a little tiny bit, like maybe 0.5 millimeter, and it threaded together perfectly. So yeah, if you guys have that problem with your We Tech gun, you know, that's just how you solve it. Pretty easy. So anyway, that's about all. Let's get on to the firing. Alright, so the web gear, you know, same old, same old. M1961 stuff, M1941 stuff. I've got the suspenders, OD3, OD7, M1961 belts, OD3 and OD7 M1910 canteen covers. So, you know, cool stuff, but, you know, standard. You guys have seen this all before, so let's get right into the shooting. Anyway, I got a magazine here, 18 rounds. These hold 20, but I only put 18 in them because it's, you know, I've heard that guys in Vietnam would only do that, so I don't know how true that is, but hey, I mean, what are you going to do? So we chamber a round by pulling back the charging handle, and that also pulls back the hammer. So first off, we're in semi. Let's take a couple of aim shots. Yeah, so that's going to be a problem with the trigger pack. Sometimes when you're in semi, it will bounce. So you got to really be kind of forceful with that trigger pull, you know? So there you go. Now into auto. We're out, gonna reload, put it over here. So, as I was talking about earlier, M60 bandolier. Pull one out of the other M61 pouch, into the gun, hit the bolt release, good to go. Back on semi. Alright, so now that we're done with that, let's demonstrate the sling. So the magazine is empty, gun is safe. Now, if we just pull on this little string right here, the entire sling just unravels, so it falls off of the XM, so off the carbine. I did that by tying a bowline and then a slip knot onto the bowline. So, really cool stuff. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.